Dracula? Should we save this for the opening?
I'm recording now, so
Okay.
Negative.
I've not seen it yet.
Yeah, it starts off pretty good, but then by the third episode, you're wondering what the fuck they're doing.
I've seen people post both good things and bad things about it, so I'm kind of curious. It's going to be a hot minute before I get to watch it, just because my year's about to begin.
The first episode was really good. The second episode was pretty decent, and then it ends in modern times.
Wah, wah.
Yeah.
Then
the third episode is, it was very, very weird. I don't want to say any more than that.
Yeah.
I've been reading some old Punisher back issues. I bought a bunch
Did
of
they
them
end in
from
modern times?
They happen in the 90s. It's not modern anymore, unfortunately. Gray hair. Mine, I mean. But it's funny, and it reminds me, and I went into him with the expectations of why I always felt like there was something wrong with the Punisher back when I was a kid, and I wanted to like him.
Yeah.
It's reminding me of that, and I knew that going in. But he's being written like Bruce Willis.
Okay.
He's got a smart-ass sense of humor, kills people sometimes. It's just not, And I remember trying very hard to like it when I was a kid and being like, this is off. This is off.
Who was writing those stories? Do you remember?
Mike Barron.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm unfamiliar with his work as a whole.
The name's familiar, but I'm not a big Punisher guy. Just
Well, and as far as his writing ability, his writing is good. It's
Yeah.
just the way he writes the Punisher specifically. It's like
90s action hero.
90s action hero with quips and that stuff.
Not war broken psychopath on the
Haunted human shark.
just to the left or the right side.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I read a bunch of stuff this week that really just kind of centered around shit I read in 2019. You know why?
Law
don't.
school.
Well, no, because it's going to be our best of 2019 show.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're doing that today.
Are we?
Yeah. Hey,
You went
everybody.
back and reread shit.
Hey, well, yeah, you got to figure out how do you know if it's your favorite if you don't
Yeah,
look
Craig.
at it again.
I reread everything too. I did.
I don't believe you.
Nah, you know I'm a little bit anal. No, there were some.
But you just wanted to look at again.
Yeah, there were some I had toss-ups about. But hey, everybody at home, listen to this, plugging in to see what's going on today. This is the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. As per usual, for the second time this year, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And I'm Craig Lance.
And this is going to be a fun episode, guys. We have reached out to you for about a month and a half now, and we've said, hey, what was your favorite thing of 2019? And we've compiled our lists. If you've been listening to the show, you know that we have done our due diligence. We have read an epic fuck ton. I think that's the correct measurement of comics in the past year. We love it. There's a lot of stuff to weigh. There was a lot of good comics that came out this year, and we broke them down by categories. We broke them down by creators. We also watched a lot of film. We watched a lot of television. We read some other things, collected some things, and let's just have an entire episode where we just sit and talk about it. Our list of favorite things and your favorite things at home because you were awesome and you went out and you filled out that form and you gave us some good picks to choose from. And we're going to list those as we list our own. So sit back, relax, and welcome. Enjoy this show. It's one of my favorite times of the year, just mainly because I get to break out all my spreadsheets. It's good times. As Matt and Craig both side-eye me, you fucking nerd. And it always coincides with the Christmas and spring or Christmas and winter break, so it makes it a little bit easier on my life. Yeah. Good stuff, man. So I think number one, even though we're talking about stuff that may have came out literally a year ago, or stuff that may have came out just 3 weeks ago. Spoiler warnings for stuff if we get into it a little bit. Some of these books, I think you just have to anymore. You just got to say, hey, like we might. I mean, like you said, you mentioned in Dracula that it ends in the modern times. Like we could get yelled at that, but we'll also yell back.
No, that one episode does. And if somebody wants to yell, my Facebook page is on our Facebook group. You can find me.
I doubt enough people are watching it to worry about it.
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to be anybody's best of list anyway. As an aside. You guys ready to go into this?
Let's do it.
So one thing I want to ask first: how did you guys go about compiling your lists? That's always fun for me. How do you guys do this when you sit down with your list? And
I go 100% off of memory.
do you?
No, no. I I don't keep spreadsheets, but I do kind of update as I go. Kind of, oh, this was a great book, and kind of add it. And the art was great, the story was great.
Yeah.
And then I go back and kind of look at that list and compile it at the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not quite spreadsheet level because that's just way too much work. But yeah,
It's not. I'm a nerd, so
we all have our things that we're ultra nerds on.
So I read through the list probably 3 times before I started actually picking books.
yeah.
And I essentially just went off of memory.
Did you?
What made the biggest impact on me, is what I'm going to remember.
Yeah.
Is the way I go off of it. I started doing, some quote unquote research on what came out, and I kept coming back to every time I found something. I'm like, well, that's what I remembered anyway.
Right.
So then I just quit doing it.
Okay. Just kind of lined up with what you did. So one of the things that I did, besides the fact that I do keep, we joke about me keeping spreadsheets. It sounds way more technical than it is. I keep a list. I keep a list of stuff I've read throughout the year, and on my spreadsheet I break it down by what publisher did this come from, and
See, that's from a list.
no, I mean it's. Here's the title. It's from Image. Boom,
playing,
done.
dude. I'm playing.
But one of the things I also do is because we have our Facebook and our Instagram and stuff like Twitter. I was able to especially on Instagram, just scroll down through the Instagram and see what we all have posted throughout the year, and that brings back a lot of stuff. It's like
Spoiler alert: I didn't post anything on Instagram.
Yeah, I
this
posted
year.
very little.
I post vicariously for both of you.
Thank you.
I take the things you talk about and insert them into the page on your
You're
behalf
awesome.
Because I love you. It comes from love.
You're awesome.
But that helps me remember stuff. You go back and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that book. Even though it's on my list, it's like I forgot what it looked like. It's beautiful.
Huge thing that's a help for me is that we do this at halftime. We do a 6-month one, so I'm able to go back and look at what I had 6 months ago versus now, and the two really help.
See how it stands up.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I like doing the 6-month show too. I think that's really helpful, not only for us but for everybody else.
Well, we all read a shit ton of books, as you said earlier. Or what did you say?
I think
epic fuck ton.
Metric fuck ton.
Yes.
Metric fuck. I thought you said epic fuck
Epic
ton.
metric fuck ton.
Whatever. Anyways,
combine
we
them.
all read a lot of books. Sometimes it's easy for something to fall through the cracks. So if on our list here we miss something, try not to hate us.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
No, you can do that.
Well, it's all subjective though, and that's why we
Yeah,
do.
art
This is
is
our.
subjective.
That's why we do. This is our favorites. We don't make the claim that these are the best books of the year. We're not number one.
Oh, I do.
Well, I mean, let me rephrase that. I don't make that claim.
Every
My
book that
favorites
I'm
are the
talking
best.
about is the best.
is the
book.
best?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm playing.
Okay, boomer. No, but I mean, it's subjective. So these are just things that brought us joy. You're not a boomer. You're
I'm a Gen X.
Gen X.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
I'm not that fucking old. My mom's a boomer.
Is she?
Yeah,
Okay, mama boomer,
no, baby boomer.
baby boomer, mama boomer. Somebody.
I don't know what I'm a Gen X.
Are you Gen X or Gen Y, Matt?
I don't know. What does any of those things mean?
It's just I don't know.
Another
Nothing.
fucking way for us to divide
Yeah,
ourselves.
it's a psychological platform. Yeah.
42 years old, so call it what you want.
That's Gen X.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a millennial. Bum, bum, bum. Tide Pods. Anyway, okay, so
Tide Pods.
let's dive into this. So instead of starting with comics, let's start from the back and work forward. I love working from the back. It's one of my favorite things. That's a gay
Hello.
joke. It's a
I
gay
got
joke
that.
for those
Giggity.
paying attention at home.
It doesn't have to be gay.
That's true. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
No, fun times all around. What was your guys' favorite film of the past year? I'm curious about this. Craig? We don't need your answer. Why don't we go ahead and get Craig's answer just out of the way?
The most shocking answer ever: The Rise of Skywalker.
So it's obviously you love this film. How many times have you seen it now?
I have now seen it 4 times and plan on seeing it at least 2 more before it leaves the theater. Here's the deal: I have the Regal app, so it costs me 55 cents to go.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, we don't even have an announcement yet on the next Star Wars films and when they're going to be. So it could be, a period of time before we have another Star Wars film. I'm going to go see it as many times as I can. However, there are a couple of movies out that I want to see now, so it'll probably slow down my viewing.
Okay. What about you, Matt? What you got this year?
Avengers Endgame.
Avengers Endgame. Nice.
Hard to argue that.
What about that movie just really hit it home for you?
What they accomplished. The movie itself, of course, was great, but what the movie capped the end of is an extremely difficult task, and for them to pull it off as well as they did, respect. Yeah. I mean, that is a moment in cinematic history. What they did with that movie.
I suspect that a good portion of our fans are going to agree with that assessment.
They did, but it did not win the fan vote.
Oh.
I think you'll be surprised at what won the fan vote. I was. But before we get to that, would it surprise you to know that I watched my favorite film of the year like 2 weeks ago? I didn't even watch it. It's
Star Wars.
No. It's not even It's a 2019 film, but I didn't even watch it in 2019. I watched it after the first of the year. And that movie was Dolomite.
Oh, I've heard good things about Dolomite.
So Eddie Murphy comes back with a vengeance. It's based off of, it's summarily based off of a real life story of, one of the most famous black comedians of all time, underrated. You don't get guys that we have today. You don't get guys like Eddie Murphy without him. And I had no idea that he was from Arkansas.
What kind of weird world is this where Caleb picked a comedy for his favorite
I thought it
movie
was
of the
I
year?
thought it was stunning the way that they played up the blaxploitation era.
Yeah.
I just think it's really great work. But for our listeners stepped up and they decided that the best on this it says 28.6% of the vote was the winner. So it was really spread out. There was a lot of answers. Midsummer.
Yeah.
Hadn't seen it.
They went with a horror film. Yeah. There were lots of votes. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Obviously, Rise of Skywalker was on there. Had some votes for The Irishman. It was all around some really good picks. It was a lot of good stuff. And notably, and for mine, Dolomite was not a theatrical release. It was Netflix or Hulu. I forget which one. Netflix. Yeah. They and The Irishman both. Peaked off, and so we're getting a lot of more of these movies based off streaming services that don't hit theaters, that are hitting people's best of lists. I think that's just really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
A lot more accessible, and hell, it's cheaper on the wallet too. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
all around
good
good
choices.
picks.
I'm glad The Irishman is getting that much respect. That's good to hear.
It is, and it's a good movie. It didn't hit my it was on my like short list of best of films. I think what knocked it off for me was the digital rendering. Because if I had have read that story, I think it would have been a whole different ballgame. Like if that story was broken down into a book.
It is. I read it.
Oh, did you? Mm-hmm. Nice. How did it stand up?
It was about as close to the book as you can get.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think you can get any closer.
I did not realize that was based off of a
I heard you paint houses. Is the name of the book.
I would have been better spent watching The Irishman than watching the almost 4 hours of Dracula I've watched now.
I'm not gonna debate that. I don't think that's debatable. No, dude, it's a solid film. I think it was great. Since we're on the topic of film, let's go with favorite actor. What leading man, quote unquote, really nailed it home for you? We'll go with you first on this one, Matt. What you got?
Well, I didn't watch a whole lot of movies this year, so I haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I have a feeling if I watched that, my answer would be different. But the fact that I didn't see that movie specifically, my answer is Chris Evans.
Okay.
And again, it's because of what he accomplished in the whole Avengers run.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I hated that guy coming into his first Avengers movie, Captain America. I hated him. Couldn't stand him. I couldn't stand the guy. I was like, that obnoxious D-bag from the Fantastic Four movies. Are you kidding me?
I will say that he grew into the role of Captain America.
Yeah, I've got to give him respect for him making me give a flying crap about Captain America. Because never in my life have I ever.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I went with mine is not going to be surprising, and it lines up with most critics. I think if you're watching the awards season, I said Joaquin Phoenix from The Joker. The delivery that he gave, that is by no means. I did not enjoy that film. I don't think the film was particularly in history. I don't think it's going to be notable, but his portrayal in that movie, he just nailed it. He knocked like one of the most breathtaking, critical roles of his life. What he brought to it just nailed it.
I thought he was absolutely fantastic.
Thought he was better in You Were Never Really There.
Possibly. I think those are two different roles.
Oh, they are.
But I can't argue with that over his entire catalog. I love him from the Johnny Cash film. I think he played, like, again, way different mindset, way different acting in that role. But the dude is like, he is the method actor. Like, he's the quintessential method actor.
One of the best actors of our time.
Yeah, he is.
What you got on this one, Craig?
I chose Adam Driver as Kylo Ren Ben Solo.
Okay.
And not just because it was Star Wars. I promise this one.
He says.
No, seriously.
Not just because.
I'm not going to say it doesn't influence it. He was absolutely fantastic in that movie. The last half hour, 45 minutes of that movie, he says one word, and that is ow. And still completely, delivers the emotion of his change back.
Okay.
Yeah, he's good.
From Kylo Ren to Ben Solo.
I can see that now. Did you see the other movie? Have you watched Marriage Story?
I have not yet that he's up for awards on.
Yeah.
And then I really want to see that zombie movie he's in with Bill Murray. That comedy looks really funny. But
I haven't seen that either. So there was no consensus on this from the listeners. People at home who fill out the form.
Then ignore them.
There was. I mean, so all of the people that we have listed were there, but people threw in some extra, some Joe Pesci, which it's hard to argue with that. Jeremy Irons, again, I think he did amazing. And Watchmen. Billy Porter is on that list. He's from Fame. He's which is the dude drives it home. So just all around, Willem Dafoe was on this list.
From The Lighthouse, I bet.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what he was in this year. I haven't seen The Lighthouse.
I heard that's
I've heard The Lighthouse is amazing.
Fucking madness is what I've heard.
Okay, I'll have to put that on my list of things to watch because I love.
I've heard it's really, really good.
All right, now let's go to the other side of the gender flip. Who is your favorite actress this year? I'll go with mine first. I said so. This one, I don't know if you guys, either one of you, have seen this show. Neither one of you have spoken about it. I actually said Phoebe Waller-Bridge from Fleabag, which is a British television show. The latest season came out in this year. One of the most quietly heartbreaking films of somebody who makes quite possibly the worst decision in every situation possible, and is just one of the most arguably morally defunct. If there was a British female version of the dad from Shameless, it's kind of her, and she just delivers in every scene. And you can watch this. I want to say it's on Hulu. It's
Amazon.
It's great. Is it on Amazon?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's getting a lot of buzz too.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's one of the best shows I've seen this year. Like television shows, one of the best shows I've seen this year. Well, and it's because of her. Just completely nails it. Who you got on this one, Craig?
I'm going to go with Catherine Winnick as Lagertha in Vikings. If you've ever watched Vikings, you know how great she is in that show. Yeah. And this year has been pretty epic for her as well. They've aged her, and she's a much more mature version of Lagertha for this season. And it's been really interesting to see her play the grandma role. Okay. As opposed to the Shield Maiden role.
Yeah, that woman is stunning.
Yeah, she absolutely is stunning. And just a phenomenal actor. Actor, it doesn't matter. That's who I chose.
I think it's well worth it. What about you, Matt? What you got on this one?
Stormy Daniels.
God, hang on.
I'm dead. Okay, somebody revive Caleb over there.
Just go.
Well, I just thought what she accomplished this year and what she set in motion was an epic achievement that few could accomplish.
Matt, you're my favorite person. I hope you never change. And you're going with this. You're just going with Stormy Daniels.
Right here on my list.
He's got it written in all caps. Okay, well, there was a consensus on this from the folks listening at home. That is going to be an epic. I can't wait to put that on the Facebooks. Hang on, I'm trying to collect myself. The listeners at home collectively got together, and again, with the majority of votes, Lupita Nyong'o is who they chose, and probably from Us, which was her latest.
I haven't seen that. So.
I haven't seen it either.
I don't know what that is.
It's the second film from Jordan Peele. He wrote Get Out, which won. It racked up all kinds of awards in 2017, early 2018. Lupita Nyong'o played one of the leading roles in his second endeavor, Us, which, like I said, I haven't seen yet. I think he's a fabulous filmmaker, and he he brings a new level to horror. So I can't wait to see this. Just haven't had a chance to. But in other things that I've seen her, she was in Black Panther. She's killing it. So good pick. I think it's great that Regina King was on that list of people.
Regina King was great.
Florence Pugh's on the list. Natalie Dyer. There's lots of good choices. They really, I can see why there was a wavering because it was spread out again.
Zazie Beetz probably should get a nod in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to the next category on my list is one that I had a hard time with because this is not my world. It's not a world I live in, and that is the favorite video game of 2019. Now this is where you reach out to Jerry and you're like, hey, tell me what to put on here. What'd you pick on this one, Craig?
Because Jedi Fallen Order.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Surprised, Caleb?
I actually am.
In your voice?
I actually am.
I have not finished the game yet, but it's a fairly fun. I enjoy the story in the game, and to be honest, I did not play a lot of new games this year. Mostly, I've been playing older games. I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
And I've been playing Witcher 3. So the only two new games I played this year were Major League Baseball.
I was going to say the show. I thought you were going to pick the show.
Yeah, and Jedi Fallen Order. So,
okay,
I went with Jedi Fallen Order because it's
the surprise in Caleb is cracking me up right
well,
now.
No, dude.
Usually I pick MLB The Show. Is usually
but that's usually because there's not a new Star Wars game.
Yeah, fair enough. But I would have I would have lost that bet. I would have said the show would have came out for him. So for me on this one, I picked Mortal Kombat 11. Now I do not own this game. I've played this game only vicariously through friends going over to their house, and it's all grab a drink, mix one up, sit down, and fight each other. And it's arguably there's some strategy in this, but
it's
a button masher. But the graphics in the game were just
beautiful,
outstanding. I think
I did buy that game.
Did
I
you?
not play much of it, but I did buy that game.
It's fun time all around. And I, like I said, I didn't have time to play a whole lot, but from what I did play, this was a lot of it, and it was just good times. Had fun, good button masher. Check it out if you haven't. Did you get anything on this one, Matt? I know you're not a gamer at all.
Yeah, no.
Solitaire.
I don't play that.
I'm going to say his favorite game of the year was Red Dead Redemption 2 because that's probably the only video game he played this year.
Okay, we'll segue that over.
Yeah,
we'll say that. Well, the folks sitting there at home who filled out our forms, they agree solidly with Craig. They think Jedi Fallen Order was the game.
See, it's not just a Star Wars thing.
So one of the things
it's a fun game, and it's got a very good storyline in it.
Well, and also it's got a good voice cast too. Now
yes.
I'll say that because they've got one of my celebrity husbands was actually the one that they modeled the guy after,
and he does the voice.
Mm-hmm. Played Ian on Shameless, and it looks a lot like him.
He played Joker in Gotham.
Yep, just really, really, I've heard good things.
It's a fun game.
So let's bounce back
Very
to TV.
hard, but yeah,
is it difficult?
Yeah. You prepare to die a lot.
Yeah. That's just what I do in life.
Even Dykes, who plays a lot of video games and he plays them on hard.
We should probably say Matt Dykes on that.
Yeah.
Just so we don't get hate mail. Yeah. This is an individual's last name, not a slur.
Yeah.
If you don't know me better than that by now as our listeners, Matt Dykes, who plays a lot of games on hard, he had to keep going back to dropping it down a level to get past certain levels.
What a bitch.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out, since we're going to talk about Matt, shout out to Matt. He is the owner and proprietor of our favorite comic book store in Central Arkansas, which is Kapow Comics over in Sherwood, over off Keel Avenue. He is gracious enough to, number one, put up with our asses. Also, we put up with him a lot. Yeah. But also, he lets us record in his own little studio in the back. So that's where we are right now, surrounded by these amazing comic books. So, appreciate it. Thanks.
Yep.
Seriously.
Always.
It's great to actually have a spot we can relax in and surround ourselves with books while we talk about them. So shout out to him. So that's it. So let's jump over to TV real quick. Favorite episodic series. I say television. I mean, this is streaming services.
I'll just go ahead and go first to get it out. The Mandalorian.
Mando? You went with Mando?
Yeah.
Unsurprised?
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, and again, legit one of the best shows that came out this year. I mean, I don't know that you can argue that.
I'm not.
Yeah.
No, your favorite. I'd say it's definitely your favorite show.
It's definitely. I mean, Watchmen was really close for me, but this was
Yeah.
my favorite show.
Okay. What you got on this one, Matt?
Amazon Studios, The Boys.
Nice.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
That was great. That hit the other list. I went with Fleabag. Like for me to actually, especially in the middle of the year when there's a ton of stuff to read, for fun and for school, for me to actually sit down in front of a television and stare at it while there are pictures moving on it, that's a feat. And for you to capture my attention and to get me to unwind is doing something. And this show did absolutely that, mainly because it's full of terrible people. And I really apparently like shows about, Shameless was my favorite of last year. I enjoyed decrepit, morally defunct human beings and hearing their stories. And that's what this is about. And so it's great. Now the listeners, they had some picks on this. They solidly went, as far as the majority, they went with Watchmen, which not surprising, especially considering the subject matter of the people who watch the show or who listen to this show. Mandalorian was on here. You know what? I got to back up. People spelled it differently, and so it's in two different spots. Mandalorian actually won the listener vote.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You guys keep giving me a hard time about Star Wars, but there's a reason it's picked so often.
Number 3 on the list. So it went Mandalorian, Watchmen, and then the third was Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance, which was the prequel that came
I have
out on
not
Netflix.
watched it yet. It's on my list to watch. I just haven't got around to it. I love the Dark Crystal movies.
Yeah,
so.
it's amazing.
It's hard for me to watch because I'm legitimately terrified of the Skeksis bird things. And also because my husband walks around the house making that weird noise that they make just to fuck with me. Because I live in a perpetual state of psychological terror at my house.
Nice.
Yeah. But that was the third
a little
pick.
hint is don't ever give your spouse something that terrifies you. If you let them know something terrifies you, they will play that up.
Lack of sex terrifies me. All right, no, I should say sex terrifies me. In that
there you
case,
go.
I'm going to tell him that sex is terrifying.
There you go.
Because maybe he'll reverse psychology, thinking not just a hat rack, my friends. So, all right. Besides film, besides books, comics, everything, we're collectors, I think, at heart. And besides all of those things, there's lots of stuff to put on your shelf. We call it shelf porn, to steal Jason Wood's moniker. What is some of the coolest shelf porn? This can be toys, statues, posters, hardcover edition of things. But, something besides just your monthly standout. I'll start with this one. This was a tough one for me. There were two things, and I'm going to on live and in person make the call. The Thanos glove that came out this year. That was so you get this live this giant fist glove with all the Infinity Stones.
Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, it's cool. The thing is, it literally is the size of Thanos' fist. Like the damn thing is at least 1.5 feet long and probably weighs 15 pounds. It's just awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And I've got an Iron Man helmet at home that makes noises, so you wear that with the Iron Man helmet, and it's kind of like you're Robert Downey Jr. And then you die, which is what happens in just life in general.
Spoilers.
We're past spoilers on that at this point. If you ain't seen that, you're not dedicated. What about you, Matt? What'd you get on this one?
I don't do those things.
You don't do collectibles?
I don't have any.
Baseball cards? Nothing?
No.
Really?
Yeah, zero, zilch. I buy comic books.
Okay.
So comic books are
your shelf porn.
I don't put them on a shelf.
I want to buy you a shelf. I feel like you don't have a shelf.
We're gonna
Maybe
come
this
to
is
Matt's
why.
house and we're gonna go line it with shelves
Craig
and
and I
start
are-
giving them stuff to fill
We're
it with.
gonna take an IKEA trip and we're gonna buy you your first shelf, baby's first shelf, and we'll figure out something to put on it.
There you go.
We'll get him a Punisher statue
There you go.
or like a driblet of
Wolverine
blood.
statue.
So I bet we can find like fake blood from the Punisher television show or movie.
Oh, don't you
whatever.
dare. No.
No,
Nothing from the Punisher.
Don't bring me
television
anything
show.
from the Punisher television show.
maybe a piece of Punisher art. Something. We got to get him something. I need him to have something. Just gleaming on his wall. What'd you get on this one, Craig? What'd you buy this year that we really
I'm actually changing this on the fly.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the Marvel omnibuses that came out this year.
Okay.
I really enjoyed collecting a bunch of them this year. Mm-hmm. And I'm enjoying, just having that beautiful, they all look the same, which I think they do better than
DC?
Yeah.
Nothing
It
drives
doesn't
me more
even really
insane.
matter what you're collecting. I collected the Conan ones came out this year for sure. Some Spider-Man ones, and when you put them up there, they look the same. And when I'm going to have omnibuses on my shelf, I want them to. Nothing drives me more crazy than the number to be.
Yeah. Or the logo to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see people posting about that shit all the time.
Oh, the Parker series, the Darwin Cook series, the 4th book. The spine is formatted differently, and it drives me. Like, I don't even have it on the shelf.
Yeah.
I've just got the 3 books there. The 4th book is in a closet somewhere.
For a long time, I had the entire Preacher set in hardback, except the 4th book was out of publish. For whatever reason, out of print. For whatever reason, they took the 4th book out of print. So I had the 7th volume of the paperbacks shoved in there because that was the story that was missing. Finally, they put them back into print, and I was able to get a hardcover because I wasn't going to pay $500 for one on eBay.
Now, let me ask you this, since we're talking about omnibuses: dust cover or no dust cover?
I leave the dust cover on.
Do you? I take mine
I
off.
don't even open the plastic off of it until I start reading it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I take my dust covers off. I don't like them. If I can get just like, especially if they do it right, and there's just like it looks like a leather bound a book with the filigree on it. I think that looks great.
Oh, I think they look beautiful without the dust cover on there. It looks more like a classic library, but I'm all about protecting my books.
No, for sure, for sure. I can see that. It will surprise nobody considering the vast amount of things that there are to collect and buy and put on your shelf, and the affordability, the price range of these things.
There's no answer from our.
There is no consensus. There's everything from the Funko Pops, which I know are widely popular. People love those things. I think they did a relaunch or a recast of the NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle series, or maybe they did. Maybe the guy whoever put that on there, which I thought was interesting because he put in parentheses 1990. It's just like, you know the year? But maybe he just went on a hunt, and that would be great to do. Obviously, one of the major things in life are the Star Wars Black Series and the Marvel action figures.
I did not pick Star Wars for this one. I want you guys to know that answer.
I got you No, the correct answer for you, by the way, was the Christmas present I bought you. That should have been your answer.
That was an amazing Christmas present. I'm not complaining at all.
No, but yeah, there's lots of stuff out there. I love it when people who listen to the show, they go and they buy these things and they're really hyped about it, and they bring it to our Facebook page and post about it, because for somebody who's not into toys, not into collectibles, for this in that sense,
it's almost like you two grew up or something.
No. So I say I'm not into collectibles. I like statues, like the resin statues. Like, if I'm going to collect something, I'll buy those.
Oh, the PVC statues.
I think those are excellent.
Are amazing. They're affordable. That was actually on my list, and at the last moment I changed it to the Marvel omnibuses. But yeah, they're absolutely amazing.
Dude, they look like the resin quality statues.
Oh,
and
yeah.
a quarter of the price,
and weight,
if that.
And they don't weigh as much. So.
Yeah, I've got a few of them. My favorite, I think, at home was the Gladiator Hulk from Ragnarok, the film, and it's dope. It looks great.
My very first one I got was a birthday present from you.
Was it?
Yeah, it was Spider-Man.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. Good job, me. Pat myself on the back. All right, last thing on the non-comics list is favorite podcast or YouTube show other than us. And I put other than us on that because I wanted, I want to know what other people are listening to, because maybe that's going to be my next favorite podcast. And I'll start on this one. This is going to surprise absolutely no one who knows me. It's 11 O'Clock Comics podcast. I listen to it religiously. A lot of what we do on here is, I won't say stolen, because I'm not going to admit to what I do, but it's modeled after them. I really respect the way that the guys, Jason, David, and Vince, speak about comics. It's not, they're not trying to be encyclopedic. They're really they keep it human and they keep it real. And I think that's great. And they go off the rails sometimes, and it's wonderful.
At the heart of all of this, we're not professional reviewers. We're all all just people that are talking.
Now, I'd say at this point,
well, they are. But but
they're solidly. And besides that is the community that they've built. I've met some of my best friends from the forums, from their Facebook page.
Did you meet them on ESC?
No.
Yeah, neither did I.
I said some of. I didn't say the. I said some of. If I'm going to put down my best friends, you guys are on that list. I met you guys at a comic shop. But as far as some of my internet friends, some of them all... No, you're jelly. I can see it in your face.
Yeah, I'm going to quit.
Being territorial, you're pissing on my leg.
Jelly.
What's your favorite on here, Craig?
Yeah, so this one actually makes me a little bit sad. Collider Videos at the beginning of the year shut down almost all of their stuff. But previous to that, it was the Jedi Council on there. It was just a fun, entertaining fan show. It was not all about the hate. I mean, they would talk about stuff they didn't like about Star Wars, but it wasn't the hate stuff. And I really am going to miss having that YouTube channel to watch.
Yeah. Like I said, was there a story behind why that shut down?
Yeah, so like 3 years ago, the two guys that started Collider Videos had a split, and one of them bought the entire, this is my understanding anyways, Mark Fernandez bought the entire Collider company from the other guy. And I believe it just got to be too costly to keep it going. They were running so many shows, and it was basically, they were running it like a professional studio. I mean, they had professional comedians on their shows. I mean, they were doing a lot of things, and I think they just reached too far.
Okay.
So
well, that's unfortunate.
it is unfortunate, but so next year, it'll probably be something else because they won't be around for me to listen to.
Yeah.
So
what you got on this one, Matt? Now you listen to a ton of stuff outside of even nerd community, so I was really curious about your answer on this one.
This one was difficult for me, but the podcast I continue to look forward to the most is still a podcast called Radio versus the Martians.
I've not heard about this.
These guys they call themselves the McLaughlin Group for pop culture or nerd culture. And so they do some very interesting analytical discussions about, they've done podcasts on the subject of Batman. They make me interested and laugh about things that I would have no interest whatsoever in on the surface. They've got an entire series called Podcast to La Vista Baby that is only about Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. And I listened to the first one because I was driving and I thought, but
why not?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing. I just listened to one about Jingle All the Way. Yes. And I was doubled over laughing, the stuff that they analyze in this movie and the comments that they make. They just continue to, and it's very smart analytical things. They're clever. And they make me care about things that I shouldn't care about and laugh the whole time. I love that podcast.
see, if I was in my car as much as you, where you have a lot of windshield time, I'd listen to a lot more podcasts.
Well, you listen to audiobooks whenever you drive, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Well, even when I'm working,
Yeah.
I'll turn them on in the background. So
Yeah. So we did have a consensus on this from the folks listening at home, and they said unilaterally. There were some other.
I know what you're gonna say it was.
What do you think? I'm curious. What do you think?
Adventure Zone.
No.
Oh wow.
Nope.
Wow.
Didn't even make the top list.
Oh wow.
It was Cartoonist Kayfabe. Now this, if you don't know, and by the way, if you're into comics, this was on my short list of stuff as well. I listened to this, every single episode that comes out. This is it's not necessarily a podcast. It's actually a YouTube channel, but you can get it through podcast. But you're best served by actually watching it. This is put out by Ed Piskor, Jim Rugg, a lot of times Tom Scioli's on it, and these underground outlaw comics guys who are now becoming comic household names. They put this out and they do everything from going back through Wizard magazine and dissecting every issue all the way up through it, to breaking down books like Akira, to breaking down books that are the XYZ and the women's comics from the San Francisco movement, to underground comics that are coming out today. They do interviews with people. Amazing Bill Sienkiewicz interview earlier this year. It's really, really, really well done. And at the end of the day, these are comics writers and comics artists talking to other comics writers and comics artists, and they're able to dissect what's being said and to lead the conversation in directions that you don't lead them to if you're just a fan. So they're talking about almost the science of the craft of comics in some ways, and sometimes they're just talking shit about cultural stuff, but it's just really cool. And I gotta say, hats off to the listeners for picking on that one. There was other podcasts. There was a podcast called Wrestling with Regret that was on here. iFanboy made the list. Obviously, EOC made the list. Somebody, you know what? I got to throw some respect out to somebody because they're rule breakers and they put Southern Fried Geekery. They just ignored the other than us. They said, "No, fuck that rule." Like, you guys are my favorite. So whoever said that, I love you. I appreciate it. So, all right. That is the rundown of what we're going to do outside of comics. So now let's get to the fun stuff, the stuff that is our bread and butter. And I've been waiting for this for 6 months, ever since we did our review, because I want to know if things have changed for you guys. I want to know if they've stayed the same. Let's start with our favorite. Let's start with our favorite publisher. We'll kind of go straight down the list on here. Matt, what was your favorite publisher this year?
So this is a difficult question to answer for me. I answered Marvel Comics because that is what I'm reading the most of from any one publisher, and that's what I seem to be enjoying the most from. And the reason I struggle with that is I still can't underestimate or underappreciate what Image Comics has done for the comics market itself.
Right.
You know, a lot of the things I'm reading from Marvel right now would not be if it was not for Image Comics. So it's hard for me not to answer Image every year, but as far as what I'm getting the most enjoyment of, it's Marvel.
Okay. What you got on this one, Craig?
I'm right there with Matt. I usually try to, think outside the box, and not that if the big two don't deserve mention, they should get it.
Yeah.
But I and Aftershock's been on my list a whole lot since we've been doing this. But the second half of this year, Aftershock kind of fell off the map for me. And so I'm going to stick with Marvel. They just have so many good titles going on right now. I'm getting, as Matt said, my most enjoyment is coming from Marvel books right now.
Okay.
Which is weird because it's almost a swing back where you're going away from capes and tights. I'm almost swinging back towards that.
Yeah.
Where I was kind of heavily away from it for a while. So it's just kind of an interesting
circle.
Yeah. And that's not to say that in the next 6 months I may be very well into the more independent stuff again.
Yeah. Well, as far as the show goes, I think that works out great because as I'm talking about things that don't involve the mainstream, the quote unquote big two, these giant universes, you guys are diving more into it, and like again, you're bringing a diversity to the show. We're talking about different books. I think that makes it fun, and I think it speaks to how I won't say well read, but how much we read and how much ground we cover.
I feel like it's becoming harder for the independent comics to hold my interest from month to month or from issue to issue for whatever reason. Some of them definitely do, which you'll find out as we get through my list here. But some of them, if they're not, I'm finding it easier to step away from some of them.
Yeah.
Well, the reason it is for me is because all my favorite, if you don't want to just say the best writers, are at Marvel.
Yeah.
Or so many of them.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say all, but so many of them are not doing their independent stuff.
I think that's probably true for me as well.
And I mean, I think it's true for DC as well. They've got Jeff Lemire's writing books for them. Bendis. I mean, there's a lot of big names. A lot of folks are doing that. So, I mean, I think what you just said, though, it's going to speak towards why I picked my pick.
Yeah.
Because mine is neither DC nor Marvel. It's not even Image. Mine is Boom Studios. As I was looking down the list of the books that I just loved and the art that I loved and the things that really are piquing my interest, I kept coming back to Boom Studios. Bone Parish, Roman Island, Waves, Red Mother, Something's Killing the Children, Faithless, just all of the like smorgasbord of amazing comics. I mean, Faithless alone, you've got. I'm not gonna get ahead.
There's some fantastic stuff.
I think Boom did just really, really amazing quality work, and while they didn't have the, if I look at the list and I look at what numbers, obviously I bought more Marvel than I bought anything else. But when I look at quality over quantity for my taste, it's got to be Boom. I mean, there was Ahoy Comics was on that list too, and that we're on the short list for the listeners. But the listeners, they jumped up and they said Image. They like it was a blowout. Marvel was in second place. Boom Studios and DC Comics tied for third on that, and then it goes down from there. Ahoy was somewhere in that list. There were a lot, but overall Image, which is interesting to me, and one of the reasons I didn't pick an Image book I don't know if it ever affected you guys, is the delays in some of the books that I love. It really just seemed like
Image has an intentional delay that
Yeah.
sometimes causes some problems where they pause between story arcs.
Well, yeah, but I'm more speaking about
East of West.
East of West, Saga,
Yeah.
Southern Bastards. There's a handful of books when I
I
was
think
going
Southern
back.
Bastards is gone, and it's going to shock me if we see Saga again.
I think we'll eventually see it again, but I think Brian K. Vaughan is writing films at this point. But I think it'll come back. But just seeing some titles that I really, really love that just kind of stagnated.
Yeah.
That marked it off the list, and I really hope they fix that, because as far as a creative well, I mean, you can't underestimate what Image brings to the table.
You absolutely can't. And as Matt said, they just what they've done for comics in general over the years, just even all the way back to their inception and opening it up for other avenues for stories to be told. You have to give them credit for that.
You do. I mean, it's a lot of good publishers.
Yeah.
Just all around putting out a. I mean, we're lucky because we've got all of these different. We're not limited in what we have to read. Makes it hard because there's just so much coming out. Let's talk about events. Everybody does events, especially with capes and tights. Events are the pushers of the industry these days now. What event came out this year that solidified it at the top of your stack? We'll start with you on this one, Matt.
Well, my favorite event of the year is not actually a comic book event. I'm talking, it's a pop culture event. And that is the Frank Herbert's Dune movie casting announcement.
Okay.
Yes, that was the most exciting thing of the year for me.
Okay.
Is when they started announcing all these characters.
Next year, when we're doing all of the movie stuff, and he's saying Dune, 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 just remember.
I want to make a note that the guy who constantly side eyes me for cheating and breaking the rules has done so twice on this podcast.
It didn't say comic event; it said event.
That's true.
Well, we're going to have to be more specific.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, and he's not even the lawyer in the group.
Yes, he is going to lawyer you on this stuff. Just remember that moving forward.
Lawyer ball.
I remember when that was announced, though, and I mean, it kind of rocked. Everybody was like, "Oh my god,
dude, it's epic!" Freaking Javier Bardem as Stilgar. Christ Almighty! Seriously, this is gonna be fucking amazing.
The release is going to be his event for next year. Oh yeah, easily.
You got Stellan Skarsgård as Vladimir Harkonnen. Batista is going to be somebody.
I'm assuming that all of these people are big names in Dune.
God damn it!
Well, he said Skarsgård.
No, I mean
he's talking about the character,
character.
the Beast Harkonnen. God damn it!
No, I know who Skarsgård is.
The worm from Star Wars.
Oh my god, the worms, the worms.
The desert planet.
I followed the rules because I'm a good boy. I'm Daddy's good boy. I went with War of the Realms, and I went with this because number one, it was the culmination of about 7 years of some really amazing work by Jason Aaron. Also, I've event fatigued out, and while War of the Realms was solidly my favorite event of the year, I can't say that there was really any events that took place this year that really just blew my socks off. I kind of tried to ignore most of them as much as I could.
That's standard for me as well.
Yeah, so that was my favorite, but I got to say, as far as, and again, maybe that's part of why I'm getting the diminishing return on capes and tights books that I have, is because of event fatigue. I really hope they break away from that soon. Really hope. No, I know, because that's how they make money off of it, and we respond by buying it, and so they're going to keep doing it. But
Actually, I drop titles because of events.
Do you?
Yeah, I'll drop them in a heartbeat because of an event. I don't even think you can call it fatigue. It's like repulsion.
Yeah,
like ugh.
Kind of salty.
So I went with Dawn of X, House of X, Powers of X.
Okay.
That was an event. It led up to the relaunching of the X titles, and it may be bending the rules a little bit, but I went with it because it was an event.
So I want to talk about this after I talk about because the listeners agreed with you. Overwhelming. There was no
nice.
There was no TMNT City at War was the only other thing that deserved
War of Realms
notice.
was on my short list, by the way.
Powers of X and House of X was their favorite event. Now, let's have this conversation.
Yes.
It's an event.
I don't think it's an event at all.
I like how Craig started off. Let's have this conversation. It's an event.
I didn't. So I disqualified this because it didn't tie into, as it's tying into other books now. Hoxpox didn't tie in to any books. It didn't tie into other storylines. It was a relaunch. It wasn't the
That's
like
an
when
event.
when I think of an event, I think of something that builds up to a moment.
So it's not your definition of an event.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Then is mine versus yours.
Again, I'm going to lawyer you here.
See, I think Craig's
it's
argument is as strong as mine. It's a thing that happened. It's an event.
It's
not over.
It was a major relaunch, resetting of a property that had been out of ideas for a long time.
Okay, so was Rebirth an event,
Yeah.
or was it a relaunch?
Yeah.
Rebirth was an event.
See, what you're thinking are crossover events.
Yeah.
This is just
An event.
So Rebirth actually started off with every comic had its Rebirth issue before it relaunched, and some of those issues were not part of the relaunch.
We have to talk about Rebirth.
No, but it's. But he brought it
better
up
than
as-
New 52. But okay, so in my mind, when I think about events,
You're talking crossover.
Crossover.
events.
kind of, yes. But so it's the difference. Okay, I said New 52. The New 52 relaunch to me was not an event. The book 52 was an event. It was a year-long event, and it was a 52-issue event. But to me, that the actual book was an event because it brought things universe-wide, and it exploded it.
So, in
But you just wait for this
so
Dune
no,
movie to
hold
come
on.
out.
So in Marvel, an event can only be an event if it's Avengers.
No, I don't think so. But
Well,
I mean, they've had
X-Men is as big of a title as Avengers. So if you're talking universe-wide,
right.
X-Men's just as important as an Avengers.
X-Men is more important.
I mean,
Thank you.
I'm not going to
Negative.
disagree. That,
Check the documents. X-Men's more important.
So I mean that. So
He's wrong on this one, kids.
I fundamentally disagree with you.
No, but I mean, you can have they've had Spider-Man events. I mean, that's so, and it's an event, and it pulls in things. Daredevil's had events. They've had events
I would
for
disagree with
anything and everything. But it pulls in. It's not necessarily just because it's the big names, but it pulls in. I mean, hell, you could have an event surround. I mean, we're fixing to have an event where Hulkling is the centerpiece in it, but it's pulling universal action from the entire thing.
It took the most powerful person in the Marvel universe as part of that event.
Right. I'm assuming you're talking about Professor X.
No, I'm talking about Franklin Richards.
Right, but he's a mutant.
But he is
Ooh, I don't like the way. Did you hear that hard M?
Yeah.
He's part of that. They're solidifying him as part of that. I think that was the major function.
I'm on our
of
fan side on this.
Okay, that's fair. I think it categorically disqualifies itself because it failed. I think now the X-Men book arguably is reaching out into other parts of the world. And I think they could have made an event if they had done this thing where,
The X-Men
they focused on Black Panther.
Okay,
and
let's
all these
let's
other
quit
wonderful
dancing
things.
around.
No,
let's quit dancing around the root of his argument, Craig. We know what it
mutants
is.
are evil.
No, it's because Simon Kudaransky is working on an X book.
Oh well, he's not because he doesn't work. There's something about him that just doesn't work.
So as the X-Men themselves, an event for the X-Men is very. Would you categorize Schism as an event?
Possibly.
The difference with it is that the X-Men generally either ignore or are ignored by the rest of the Marvel universe.
I mean, yeah, but like House of M was an event.
Yet that affected only the X-Men.
No, I mean, but it didn't. It didn't affect only the X-Men. They brought in there was House of M tie-ins to the Avengers. It was okay, but we're getting into semantics. I think you're wrong. I don't think it was an event. I think
The whole argument's based on semantics, actually.
Yes. I just don't.
House of X, Powers of X was the event of the year.
I think that's a good choice, particularly for best limited series.
Oh, son of a bitch.
All right, so favorite creator-owned character. Now, Matt, did you put this on the list? Okay, I think it's great that you put this on the list because I had fun digging through these things. And Craig, I'm curious on this one. Who is your favorite creator-owned character?
I went with Gigantic
Okay.
from Adventures of Parker Reef.
Oh,
The
okay.
little action figure that comes to life and helps Parker through his ordeal trying to find his way back to his dad.
That book.
I struggled with this one, though, because there are so many good creator-owned characters right now. So,
Who'd you go on this one, Matt?
Image Comics Reaver, the series Reaver. Thess.
Okay. I would have thought you would have went with Raquela.
Not, I would have until I finished the series.
And you just decided Tess was going to win.
Like, oh man, I know she decided she was going to win,
and she did.
Oh man.
So was my answer acceptable?
It was.
Oh, okay.
It is creator owned, and it is a character. It meets the categories. This is what Craig's going to give me shit about all year now. Mark this
Justifiably.
down.
I'm just going to ask you every time a new event happens if it's actually an event or not, so I can put it on my list.
You know, it's going to be like, well, it's an event, but it's a small e.
It's a small e event.
Yeah. Lowercase e event.
Some things are parties. Some things are an event. I went with the. Remember back when I said that I think this is a great thing, and because it made me think about all of them. That's also a reason I hated that you put this on the list, because it made me disqualify. And when I'm thinking about my favorites, it really did make me disqualify things off that list. And as I went down through here, and I thought about things that really poignant characters who carried a lot of emotional weight. I waffled through about 3 of them. But I think I eventually landed on Murder Falcon. And the character of Murder Falcon being the embodiment, and this is from Daniel Warren Johnson's book, being the embodiment of kind of sheer will and hope, and also metal. From a book that can both make you laugh, give you the energy, and break your heart at the same time. And if it wasn't, like, if you had have taken that Murder Falcon out of that book, that the book would still be amazing, but just the iconography of having a giant, like, monster man with a falcon head and a robot arm, teaching you how to feel and teaching you about metal. I just think that book is spectacular, and that character is wonderful, and just the design,
It's dope.
it was great. So there was no consensus on this from the folks listening at home. You had, let's see, Hellboy was on the list. Norton Sinclair was on the list, and I think that surprised me that he was on the list. It's from Gideon Falls, but I can absolutely see why. I love that somebody picked him. You got Erica Slaughter, Savage Dragon's on the list. Somebody put Criminal, which I don't know if
Criminal.
Yeah, I don't know what character that they were.
Yeah, that's a book.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just the main, like, if they're, because I'm trade waiting on that, so I haven't read the last setup. I don't know if it's like this new issue is following just a main person or not.
It's called Criminal because it's about criminals.
Yeah.
Criminal behavior is why it's called Criminal.
Yeah. I wasn't sure on that one. I mean, hey, maybe they're just saying and it's impossible to pick, or maybe that the criminal behavior is a character in that book, which, hey, it's a metaphor, so I can see that. Just it was interesting. I'm reaching here. Well, while we're laughing, oh wait, no, there's one before that. Let's talk about what comic most exceeded your expectations this year. What started off low and just really blew it out of the water for you? We'll start with you on this one, Craig.
I went with Little Bird from Image Comics. I wasn't expecting that book to be nearly as good as it was. Darcy Van Pelgeest, I think is how you say his name. He had just that was his first foyer into comics.
He's a film writer, right?
Yeah, he's a film writer. So I really didn't know what to expect. I mean, Ian Bertram is Ian Bertram, but it just really was a fantastic book and a big surprise for me.
Yeah, it was really good. And every time I see Darcy's name, I never read it correctly. I see Darcy Poltergeist.
I can't wait to see what that team does next. There's more of that to come.
I hope so.
Yeah. So I went with Deceased from DC Comics, and this was Tom Taylor. I want to say Rod Reese did the art on that book. Maybe, no, it wasn't Rod Reese. Who was? I'll come back to it later. I thought this was just going to be kind of a blip. I thought that this was going to be something that played off of Marvel Zombies to the DC way, and I was wrong. And Tom Taylor really just nailed home with this series that there are very few other people who can write long form Elseworld tales as good as him. And maybe we should have known that from the Injustice series he did. The dude's a powerful writer, and he took something that is. I know, Matt, you kind of have this aversion to Contagion books, but what he did in that was he boiled down all of these characters to their bare essence and then put them through the ringer and really flipped the script on what your expectations of that book was, or what they should have been. And to me, that is one, it just blew my expectations out of the water, because I did not see myself liking this book. I thought I was going to pick it up and read 1 or 2 issues and then drop it straight up. I was like, let me dip into this, but man, that was one that moved to the top of my stack as it went on. It was great. So
Yeah.
what you got on this one, Matt?
Well, the one that exceeded the expectations the most for me was the book that I assumed I would hate, and I ended up getting like butterflies in my stomach of joy from the Punisher Kill Crew.
Oh yeah,
by Jerry Dugan and Juan Ferreira. The issue 2 and 3 with all the headbutts, the violent headbutts, especially.
Is there any other?
It's just.
there's semi-violent headbutts.
It's
just
just
like when you want to get your point across.
Oh yeah,
but you
like
don't wanna
I
leave
mean,
a
when
mark.
you're headbutting someone so hard, you're shattering the panel itself, and their ears come off in your hands because you headbutt them off their ears. Amazing stuff. Amazing. I wish I could relive that experience every morning.
Yeah. Well, so I'm gonna flat out side eye the listeners on this one. The fuck y'all talking about? The answer to this one, the one that got the most votes, was House of X Powers.
I knew it.
All right, so
You
folks,
had no expectation for that?
folks listening at home, I love you dearly. I think you all are great. Folks
Well
on our
done,
Facebook
folks.
page,
Well done, folks.
I love you. But you got did you see the creative team on that book? How do you have low expectations?
It
on
doesn't.
that?
Well, it doesn't mean you went in with low expectations. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't mean you went in with low expectations. They exceeded. Both that team exceeded my expectations for that book. I went in with high expectations, and they were exceeded.
I mean,
no doubt about it.
It doesn't mean, when you say exceeds expectations, that doesn't mean that it had to have low expectations to begin with.
I mean, maybe.
It might mean, but not. It just
I thought he was the lawyer on the screen.
know, right? Well done, folks.
I don't know how your to me, there was no place for that book to go but down. It was either going to be amazing or I was going to be disappointed.
I think if I'm being honest, it probably exceeded my
It
expectations.
did. Oh, there's no doubt.
I had no idea what was going to happen, but it blew my fucking mind.
The cleverness and the fact breathing new, exciting interest into the X-Men title, which has just been driven into the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I knew Hickman was going to do that. That's what we expected from him. So
That's what you expected.
yeah, I mean, maybe I'm still not, but also Immortal Hulk was on this list. So I guess you're going to throw that same argument in there that you had that even though it was great, you expected more, or you didn't expect it to be, could it be better? Something, I don't know. Yeah. I'm side eyeing all around our listeners on this. I don't know what y'all doing at home. I don't know why you wouldn't expect the best from that.
Well done, people.
So okay, whatevs. Whatever.
I mean, I wouldn't have put on my most exceeded.
No, that's because because you understand how these things work. No, I'm giving a lot of shit.
Events.
I'm
I was about to say, does he? Does he, Caleb?
I'm giving shit. Just it's giving shit out of love. Comedy comics.
Yeah.
There's a lot of funny shit that came out this year.
Yeah.
Matt, we're going to go ahead and get your answer out of the way because I know what it's going to be.
Oh, it's super easy. Ahoy Comics, Second Coming by Mark Russell and Richard Pace.
Not what I expected.
I second that motion.
Oh,
That's what my choice is too.
Funniest
Okay.
book. What did you think it was going to be?
The book that you co-writ. That you had so many letters in the back of.
That was last. That wasn't this year.
Did it not end this year? I thought Assassination ended this year.
Yeah.
You've spoken about Assassination on the show, and you weren't part of the show last year.
Yeah. But it wasn't. It didn't make. I loved that book, but what made me laugh the most was Second Coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
That exceeded my expectations.
My second on this was also by Mark Russell, and that was Red Sonja.
Yeah,
I thought it was a very funny
I did too.
story.
It made me
as well,
chuckle a lot.
But Second Coming won.
Second Coming was number 2 on my list. Number 1 is going to shock the shit out of you. I think it'll shock the shit out of Craig.
Is it House of X? Powers of X?
No. Although Apocalypse in a suit was pretty fucking comical.
Yeah.
No, dude. Hands down, the book that made me laugh the most as I flipped the pages. Rick and Morty versus Dungeons and Dragons.
It was fucking fantastic.
Now,
It's hard to argue that.
This is timely because even up until last night, some friends of ours on the Facebook group and some chat groups and stuff were talking about Rick and Morty. And if you know me and you've heard me talk about this, I can't stand the show. I think the show, it literally, nothing will take me out of a moment than Rick and Morty. I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's nearly as clever as it wants to be. But Jim Zub took that and flipped it on its head in a comic form and related it to, role-playing games and stuff like that. And so there was a little bit of me liking that part of the subject matter that just drew it in, but it's just, he's actually making fun of the show in the book. In a lot of ways, he's poking
the reality
fun of the
is
fans.
the show makes fun of the show.
It is a very self-conscious show. It knows what it is. But I cracked up laughing at every single page through this entire series.
I played the Rick and Morty. I actually DM for a group of people, and we did the Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons module you can buy.
Yeah.
And I ran my group through that. Well, we're 2/3 of the way through it. So fucking funny. You died laughing.
I quit
before. I did not even prep for it because I read the description of the first room, and I'm like, I want to find out as my team. I did not even prep for it because I wanted to laugh as they laughed because it was fucking hilarious.
If it's based off of what they're doing in the book,
it absolutely
it's gotta be.
It's Rick is the DM and sets up this world for everybody to go into. It's amazing.
Well, the listeners at home have really good taste. I'll say they have great taste in comedy books. They picked Jimmy Olsen, and that was a good book. I got to give them, even though I don't know how it lined up on their expectations, but
fucker.
Dude, Jimmy Olsen was excellent, and it's a book I didn't see coming.
Yeah, me
Matt
either.
Fraction just.
I actually expected one of you two to pick that one for your exceeded expectations.
Okay, yeah, I could have seen that because I did, like I said, didn't see that book coming. Just the way it's set up, it's funny as shit. Like
very funny.
The amount of the way that he works in some really irreverent jokes.
Yeah.
Not only too irreverent to any type of cultural standard, but just irreverent to DC fans, and still makes them laugh.
Yeah,
is great.
Yeah. The line people like when he breaks stuff with his ass.
Yeah,
like that line. It's amazing.
So let's jump back over to talking about capes and tights for a little bit. There's lots of books in the mainstream. We've already spoken about some of the mainstream teams on this. Who this year, 2019, the year of our Lord, what was your favorite superhero team group comic? And like I said, there's a variety of things that this can range from.
I don't know. You're gonna have to give me your take on it once I give an answer.
Okay, well, I'm gonna list mine first, and you can tell me whether or not I'm right or wrong. I actually went with West Coast Avengers. Yeah. That wrapped up this year.
That would follow in that.
Thought it was funny as all hell. It solidified my thirst for a Young Avengers book. You got a baby land shark named Jeff. I think it was just incredibly well written. It's been collected since then, and so you can go grab that in trade. And I think you should. It's funny.
I wish that book had been an ongoing.
Like I'm sad that Kelly Thompson's not still writing that. Yeah. And, she's moved on to other things. I think she's writing Deadpool now, and so she's still bringing a great comedy sense to it. But the way she pulled a team together, I mean, you've got Avengers, you've got X-Men, you've got people that you didn't expect. There's some new characters in there. That book
some
had a lot
old
of
characters as new characters.
Yeah, it just had a lot of heart, and that's what I wanted of a team book, and it did it. It nailed it. So what's yours on this one, Craig? First off, is it more than one person?
Yes.
Okay.
It's probably X-Men.
Okay.
By Marvel.
It's definitely a team.
Jonathan Hickman and Lionel Francis Yu.
Okay.
I mean, it goes to the top of my list every time I get it on my stacks.
Yeah, it's my
and I never read out of order unless it's X-Men.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
yeah. If it got you to break the order, you got to put that one in.
So for me, X-Men was always my favorite team book.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to have the X-Men just fucking killing it again.
Nice doesn't even cover it.
Yeah. Those of us that grew up loving the X-Men and that was our thing, as Matt says, you can't really describe how nice or how great or fantastic or whatever adjective. Yeah. Whatever adjective you want to put in there to have the X-Men be a good thing again.
A great thing again.
I love it. I think it's.
I would have settled for good And
Yeah,
it's
I would have.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have settled for good. I was ready to settle for good. It's
And then it exceeded your expectations.
just
Yes.
yeah, did. As the listeners said.
The smart people that they are. What's yours on this one, Matt? You said
Same.
same?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Same answer.
Right there, buddy.
Yeah,
Right there.
right
yeah.
on,
Well,
yeah.
you know who else is right there with you?
The listeners.
All the listeners.
I knew it.
They split it, and I'm going to include it in one. But the two sections that got the biggest votes, part of them voted for House of X, Powers of X. The other part voted for X-Men. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think it all follows in line. So
No, one's an event and one's an ongoing.
no, one's an introduction. One's an introduction, and the other is an ongoing. No, they went with that, and you can't fault it. I absolutely understand why, and I can see it's a. I mean, there's even people outside of comics who have asked me, and I don't know if they've done this to you guys, but they're like, "Hey, like there's something big going on with the X-Men in comics right now," and these are people who haven't read a comic book since they were a kid.
Yeah.
So it's broken out of the cultural zeitgeist of fandom,
For sure.
And people who only know X-Men from like the cartoon are like, "What's up with X-Men right now? I'm hearing the buzz." So you can't fault them. I think it's great, and hopefully it draws some more people in. But sometimes teams break up and folks got to go their own ways, which leads to just solo superhero comics. And so I'm curious about. We'll start with you on this one, Matt. What was your favorite solo comic?
So mine, this took a lot of thought. Mine was Daredevil.
Was it?
Yeah, as far as solo, what book do I look forward to the most of a solo superhero? Yeah, I really do think it's Daredevil, which is, I'm historically not especially interested in Daredevil.
Okay.
But this book has been so good. Yeah, I really look forward to this one the most when it comes to standalone.
If it had been based on the first arc, yeah, totally. For me, I mean, yeah. I love throwing these little bombs across the table. Dude, I went with Mr. Miracle. Even though I know it was a limited series, when I finally got to read that book all at once, just the way that it really. So look, I don't know a lot about the fourth world characters. That's not my bread and butter. Created by Jack Kirby, that's awesome. I don't know a lot about Mr. Miracle. I don't know a lot about, other than Darkseid being the big bad guy for DC. There's not a lot there that really pulls me. But once I finally got to sit down and read that book all in one, I get it. I get why the people love that book. I get why they love the subject matter. I get why it just racked up Eisner after Eisner after Eisner. The art was great. The way that they really broke down what motivates Mr. Miracle. And it's not just the betterment of the world. It's the ability to almost turn his back on everything and walk away from it. Until he finds the one thing that he can't. It completely blew my mind. Just the way it was written, the craft that went into that, just made me love that character. And if you can take something that I've never read before and in 12 issues make him in the top 5 of my favorite characters from a single publisher, you've done something. So that was mine.
Well, if this was 2018's list, I would go with Batman.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Had to get that in there, didn't he?
I'm going to go with Green Lantern by Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp. Of course, it's DC Comics. It was just fantastically drawn. The story was compelling. Mm-hmm. It was interesting. You had Hal Jordan punching God in it. I mean, there was just some great moments in that book. So that's what I'm going to go with. Daredevil would have been short on my list as well. Also a fantastic book.
Did y'all read the series that came out before Daredevil? It was like the Man of Fear miniseries, like a 6-issue thing. That way, if you haven't read that, because it leads straight into this recent Daredevil run, you should check that out. That was really
the bridge between the crap that Charles Soule did,
right,
leading up to the news. The last story arc.
No, I mean you had it right the first time. So the listeners, they got together, and the majority of the listeners, the only one that got a solid majority, they said Immortal Hulk, which can't fault them for that. If you see the Hulk as a hero, then I can see how that book was your favorite superhero book.
I mean, you can make that argument going into the second half of this story, into the current story arc.
Oh, absolutely.
He is a environmental hero.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, and he's even on. I waffled with this because I think it's, for my money, it's the best book at Marvel. I don't personally see him I see him as like a force of nature.
Yeah.
And so that's why I put him second on the list. But he definitely made my list. I mean, that's a smart pick.
I probably would have went with Bruce Banner as in Immortal Hulk as the best hero.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that. I mean, there was a lot of good names that the listeners picked on this one as well. Venom was on this list. Donny Cates, his run on this got a lot of attention. I know it was kind of beloved by a lot of people. Again, you're talking about an anti-hero with that one, and if you can find a hero, somebody pull that out, I think you've done a lot of good work. Aquaman was on this list. Apparently, people, more people than we know of than are speaking about it, really liked it. You had Batman, a Savage Dragon made the list, so I think we all know who put Savage Dragon on there. Not hard to figure that one out.
Yep.
All right,
Still making his presence known.
He is. Favorite sci-fi comic. Let's start talking about some genres. This was tough. This was
Not
tough
for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we'll start with you on this one. Who was your favorite sci-fi this year?
I went with Outer Darkness, Image Comics, John Layman, and Afu Chan. And I have 3 horror books that are in the next 4 categories, and I had to find places to put them.
Yeah.
And this fits into both horror and science fiction, so that's where it went. It was hands down to me the best science fiction. The stuff they do with demons controlling the ships, and it's so interesting. Such a refreshing take on the sci-fi genre, and then to add the elements of horror into it's just amazing.
Yeah.
My turn. So, Outer Darkness to me is a horror book in the same way that Star Wars is a fantasy story.
Yeah.
So, I don't have Outer Darkness for this. If I thought of it as a sci-fi book, there's no doubt it would be number 1. But I just can't categorize it as a sci-fi book.
See, now he's going after you, Craig.
No, this is just
I agree.
So this is my.
Oh, so it's fine when he does.
No, I actually. That's why I stipulated at the beginning of this that I have 3 horror books in the next 4 categories that I.
So, I picked Port of Earth.
It was a good series.
Yeah, for favorite sci-fi series.
It was a very, very good series.
It's clever, very clever book.
So I'm not reading Port of Earth. I know you've spoken about it on the show before. Give me like the quick and nasty of it.
The quick and nasty. So the Port of Earth, the story essentially is that aliens have established a shipping port on the planet Earth. And so it becomes a very big money maker to the government and the businesses associated with it, and to the alien species itself. But there are serious problems when aliens start coming on and off planet, and the people in power justifying the violence and death that comes of their presence.
Yeah.
Justifying that because of on the grounds of commerce. It's something that's been part of the human race forever.
Right.
Justifying terrible things in the interest of commerce, and this is just another one of those stories.
He who controls the spice, man.
Yeah, that's right.
See what I did there?
See, my argument goes to the aliens. Is aliens horror?
Yeah.
Not to ignore what he just said, but I've been sitting here thinking about this. Is aliens horror or sci-fi? It's both.
It is. I can see that. Yeah.
So, anyways, I love Port of Earth. It's a fantastic book, and everything he said is spot on about it.
I need to read
I was
that
sitting here just going, wait, I know I'm right too because I thought about this.
No, and that's and to clarify, I wasn't saying that it's wrong to categorize Outer Darkness as sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's just that's not the
hard sci-fi.
The weight of the story to me is horror.
Yeah.
That's where the weight is. It's a sci-fi setting.
Yeah.
The best stories defy genres, though. They're not limited by those brackets.
Yeah.
So I went with on this one. Mine was Little Bird.
What?
Little Bird. To me, Little Bird, it's dystopian sci-fi. There's cloning involved. They're looking at the way that science works in a world without constraints and without, this is the ugly part of sci-fi. This is not gleaming cities. This is not the Jetsons. This is not space travel. This is what happens when science works towards monsters in the wasteland. and leads towards generational poverty and gives the people who control things. When you have people who are willing to quote unquote salt the fields for power and use technology for their benefit alone, that's to me what Little Bird went with. And so that's why, and number one, I mean, just the art in that book makes you drool. Just great. Darcy Van Polgeest, I don't know where he came up with that concept from, but he really, really nailed the story. And again, like you said, it's a story that defies genre. And so I think that's some of the way, and for me, that's the way science fiction does best. Mars Attacks was on my list, and that's just a really heartfelt father-son story that jumps in and deals with science.
I think, as you said earlier, good art defies genre anyways, because it will fit. Good music fits into multiple classifications of music. Is it grunge or is it metal? You had this argument on Facebook. It's just, you can make all kinds of arguments about different art fitting into different genres of things. So, well,
the folks at home, they did not reach a consensus. They had everything on here. They had Outer Darkness on here. Black Science, Ascender is on here. The Alien books from Dark Horse Comics were on here. Undiscovered Country, Blade Runner 2019, which I didn't get a chance to read this year. There was a lot. I read about half of those,
and the ones that I read were all fantastic and could have easily made the list. Black Science, Ascender.
Sci-fi is one of the genres that I think comics does exceptionally well.
I would agree with that.
Now, okay, so since we were talking about the blend of genres, and there was an argument of whether, not an argument, there was discussion of what is the predominant theme in a book, horror or sci-fi. Let's jump over to horror. What was your favorite horror book this year, Matt?
It's Outer Darkness.
Outer Darkness?
Yeah.
Okay.
Image Comics, Layman Chan. Yeah, no doubt about it.
It's a fantastic horror book.
Oh gosh, so good. Yeah.
What was yours, Craig?
Immortal Hulk. Marvel Comics with Al Ewing and Joe Bennett. I would argue that it's moving away from horror, but enough horror happened in it throughout most of the year that can still be classified as that.
Yeah.
I didn't really know where to put this book outside of in the horror genre as far as the categories that existed, because it's not a superhero book, in my opinion, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's headed to that, but as of right now, it's not. So to me, the horror aspects of this book are, very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Oh, yeah, man, they're there.
It's back to the roots of what the Hulk is supposed to be.
It's taking those first 5 issues and just spinning it up.
Yeah. Monster story. Yeah.
So
I absolutely loved it. So mine on here is a recent book. And again, that's a category that I've been reading a lot more of lately, is horror books, but there's a book that came out in the last few months from a publisher I don't think gets nearly enough attention, and I know I've blown you guys up about it, but it's The Plot from Vault Comics. It's a book's written by Michael Morrissey and Tim Daniel. It's in and of itself a ghost story, and it's a ghost story in the way that it uses the setting of the book as a character. It deals with lineage. It deals with family. It deals with the mistakes of your past coming back to haunt you. It is a cerebral book, and it's just, the art on this book is just haunting. It goes in places that you don't expect it to. It's a very loose book, which I think is fitting for this kind of horror. They're not, things aren't overly detailed. They're allowing you to use the lines to, it's a ghost story. They're blurring things for you, and things are not necessarily what they're seeing. They're obfuscating some stuff with the art, and they're really playing up the tension, which is what a horror book needs. To me, it's got to have, like, if you just tell a ghost story and you're just going straight out and you don't have it in these moments that really make you grip the edge of your seat, things that those books that you guys both spoke on do very well. I think it's one of the best ghost stories I've read in a long time, and I didn't see it coming from Vault.
I think ghost stories are kind of hard to tell in a comic format. It takes a lot of to get that suspense. It's a hard thing to do in comics sometimes. So.
And I say ghost stories. This is not a ghost story in the traditional sense.
No, okay.
But that's just like calling it a ghost story is really the only way I can conceive it in an audible sense.
Right.
Just to in a short period of time to tell you what the book is about. It's definitely a haunting book. I don't necessarily think that there's like an actual apparition. Like there's not a little, like Casper's not floating around, but there's something connected to the land, connected to the house, connected to the ownership that haunts this family. And in that sense, it's a ghost book. But that's part of also what I love about it is it defies convention. And I think that's an excellent way to look at things.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about sequential art. Now, the folks at home, they picked Gideon Falls, which
You can't argue.
I know. I mean, that was my favorite horror book of last year.
It's kind of a psychological terror.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a lot of things going on in it, and it's still a very, very, very good book. There's just so many other things that are happening.
Very few people play with the psychology of visual connection in the way that Andrea Sorrentino does.
Yeah.
The way that he's doing his layouts in that book.
As much as I love Jeff Lemire, that book would not be as good as it is without Sorrentino on it. Yeah.
Because you're dealing with so many layers of life and worlds and everything else. His overlap, the way he constructs his page, it really does toys with your emotions, and just the way he lays out his panels, that fucks with you. Mm-hmm. Like and yeah, I can see why they picked that. There were some other things on here. Immortal Hulk is on the list, deservedly so. I mean, I know that nailed it for you, Craig. Ice Cream Man, which was a series that I started. I read the first 6 issues.
I
almost
fell
like
off
an
of it at the
anthology.
end as well.
It
Yeah.
felt like just
It ended up
horrifying.
having a theme line running through
Did
it.
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I fell off of it at the end, but not because of the story,
Yeah.
more because of me and time constraints. But very, very good story.
Nice. All right, so Sword and Sorcery. I know, like this, Matt's ears like perked up.
So
on
yeah,
this one.
I'm the one that changed this from fantasy to sword and sorcery, and that's just because fantasy is too open of a genre to me.
Yeah. Well, like you said, Star Wars. Star Wars is fantasy.
Yeah.
Conan's fantasy.
Well, and Star Wars would still fall under sword and sorcery,
Yeah.
but I mean, Superman falls under fantasy as
That's
well.
true,
Everything, almost every comic we read falls under the fantasy category. So that's why I like the
Agree
sword and
wholeheartedly.
sorcery. Yeah.
Well, what's your favorite Sword and Sorcery, Craig?
I went with Reaver by Justin Jordan and Alex Gutierrez, Rebecca Isaacs. Just a fantastic, fantastic story, and can't wait to see what happens within this universe. It was just some really compelling characters, even the ones that you dislike. You dislike them enough to like them as a character.
Well, I agree with you so much that was my answer too. So for all those
choices.
same reasons,
Yeah.
all those same reasons.
Interesting.
And yours?
Conan the Barbarian.
Nice.
Yeah. I still look for, of all the sword and sorcery books, I still look forward to that one the most.
Am I insane? Or
Yep.
at some point weren't you preferring Savage Sword over Conan, or was that other people?
I was.
The first, whenever both series started, I was looking forward to Savage more. And, but, as much as I still like Savage Sword, it's the creative team changes, on the regular.
I agree.
So it's just, as far as consistency goes, based on that fact, I have to give that to Conan the Barbarian, Jason Aaron's. And,
That was on my short list as well.
Oh, I mean,
Red
it was
Sonja.
absolutely on my
Red
short
Sonja was
list.
on my short list for a couple of different categories.
very well written. I still, and for the same reason I have so, appreciation for what's going on with the X titles, is we haven't had a good, strong Conan the Barbarian book in long time.
The best thing that ever happened to Conan was being brought back to Marvel.
Yeah.
Oh, easily.
I mean, as far as the comic industry goes, you could also argue the best thing that ever happened to Conan was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's also true.
No, I'd say Roy Thomas.
Well, correct.
You could argue that as well.
Buscema.
And, you can make arguments.
So much of Roy Thomas made so much of what we know as Conan. Obviously Howard, but Roy Thomas was the second coming for a lot of us of Howard. He was on my short list. One of the things I think that series did especially well was take almost an episodic view. As we're talking about shows like Mandalorian that are beloved right now in pop culture, The Witcher. Each episode kind of does its own work, but you start to see the thread. And I think that's what I really enjoyed about the Jason Aaron run, was how he bounced
Yeah.
How we bounce
Oh,
through
yeah.
time.
It's cool.
I think
Yeah.
it's
Really
It's
cool.
good story mechanics.
Yeah.
Well, the folks at home did not come up with a consensus. Conan was on there, Rat Queens was on there, Coda was on there, which is a series I've got to get caught up with. Folklords, which is it's a new book. I think there's only been 2 issues that's come out so far.
It missed my radar.
Oh, who was that Fraction? No, I think it was Matt Kent.
Oh, okay.
I think Matt Kent wrote Folklords. Red Sonja's on there, 7 to Eternity. They spread it out because there's just a lot of really, really good books to read.
I apparently did not understand 7 to Eternity because people love that book, and I read the first issue and immediately fell off of it.
Yeah. It didn't hit me the way it hit other people, but I know people really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that gets a lot of hype.
Yeah, that and Monstrous was the same for me. I did not stick with it, and people love that one. Anyways, not to
what people do love?
What's that?
They love crime.
Yeah, and mystery. I want to make sure we get the mystery part of that.
Crime and mystery.
Yes.
Mysterious crime. They love it so much that they voted on it.
Yeah.
So what's yours on this one, Craig? What was what's your favorite crime or mystery
I went
book?
with Farmhands by Rob Guillory, Image Comics. It has a mystery going on throughout the story that you do not understand. There's this dynamic going on between him and the mayor, and you don't understand her connection. It is a mystery.
Oh, listen to him try so hard, Caleb.
He wanted this book. It had to fit in somewhere.
Yeah.
So he's
have to.
finding a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
He is finding a way.
When I saw mystery on there, I thought, man, it fits into mystery
gosh.
because it was going to miss my list again.
Man, those are some gymnastic quality backflips you're doing there, brother.
Nope. It fits perfectly into mystery.
See,
It's
he's
a
starting to. I'm being
horror
nicer.
mystery.
And
It is
Matt's,
a horror mystery.
Matt's going to start running you down the semantics chain. I went with a book that it was actually it's going to be told in 3 parts, but it's coming out in they're not doing it in monthly installments. They're putting it all together. And that book's called November. Now this is a book that comes from Image Comics. It's written by Matt Fraction, drawn by Elsa Chartier, and it's just amazing. Volume 1's called The Girl on the Roof. I think I spoke about this on the show at one point. Whenever you're talking about crime books, to me, the high watermark is Darwin Cook, and he always has been. And so when I'm reading a book and I see so much of Darwin in that book, that's going to be a book I got to take my hat off to. And so there were some other books on this list, and this actually, because I read this in the last part of 2019. This unseated a book that was easily my favorite crime comic throughout the entirety of the year. But I love it. I love that. I love the story of it, which are these 3 women's their lives come together in really, really weird ways. It's kind of got a noir feel to it. Matt Fraction's already. I mean, you don't have to sing Matt Fraction's praises. He does that for himself. He proves that he's an amazing crime writer. He's an amazing writer. Period. And he can balance comedy with everything else. And so this book really hit home for me and filled a niche that it filled a spot for me that has been missing in crime. Not that I know the book that Matt's going to talk about is probably, because I just know Matt. I think it's leading the popularity contest, but I really wish more people would read this book, because I think it would. If you love Darwin Cook, you're gonna love what Matt.
Well, I
Fraction
borrowed
does
it
in
from
this.
you. I haven't read it yet, but
You're
I
busy.
intend to. Yeah.
I think you're gonna love it when you get it, because you love Darwin as well. So Matt, why don't you go ahead and tell folks at home what you're gonna read?
Yeah, what they already know.
Yeah.
Image Comics Criminal by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips.
Yeah.
I love this book.
It's amazing.
So good. Yeah.
I've been trying to low key catching up on it because I fell behind.
Oh man, so great.
Very overall, I don't.
And
think,
it's a mystery because you don't really know how it's going to end when you start reading it.
Yeah.
And it's like, are these people going to go to jail? It's very mysterious as well.
I mean, to be honest, and to be 100% fair, I'm not reading any other crime or mystery books this year. I didn't jump on Criminal because it's a volume in a series that I didn't start with, and I didn't understand at the beginning that it was. Now I understand because of Matt that you could jump on at any point that they start a new volume of it. generally speaking, I love Brubaker's stuff, and I read everything he does, but I missed out on Criminal the first time around.
Overarching the entire genre, I don't think that there's anybody who writes crime as frequently as well as Ed Brubaker. A book that was on my short list for this was My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies, that was done by Ed and Sean.
Was that this year?
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think I remember it coming out this year.
Okay.
But very few. I mean, nobody overall does, and that was definitely on my short list. And the folks at home, hands down, agreed. Because that got the most. I think that came away with 60% of the votes.
Nice.
They didn't put Farmhands on there?
Their Farmhands is not on there.
Google must be broken, right?
It is.
You know what? I kind of think I had to have spoken about November on the show at one point.
Yeah,
because
you did.
20% of the voters voted for that, which makes me happy. Batman's Grave made the list, and I think probably tying into the mystery part more of it. Warren Ellis, just.
For some reason, he's not written as a detective very often anymore, so I'd never really think of the Bat books to put into that genre anymore.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what other books made y'all shortlist in that genre? Because I know, Craig, you said you haven't been digging much of it. Were there any other books that really just...
I just have not read a lot of crime books this year, at least off the top of my head that I can remember, which was why it was like, okay, well, I could justify putting Farmhands in there and using some mental gymnastics. I get it, but I could. I just haven't read a lot of crime this year.
Okay.
So
what about you, Matt? Any other notables?
I mean, I read November, and I really liked it, but I mean, nothing comes close.
It did not do it.
Yeah, no, nothing comes close for Criminal to me.
Yeah, the book I said that it unseated that I read most of the year was Bone Parish, which is arguably a horror book. Again, it defies genre. But crime book. I think Dead Eyes was on my list. Even though we haven't gotten a lot of it because of the weird hiatus I had to take.
Yeah,
I mean, it's so weird because there's so many. Bone Parish definitely could be in there, and I didn't even think about that again.
Well, because I think mainly it's a horror book, but it's a mob story too.
Was the
drug dealers
the Aftershock book where they went? I guess it's Through Hell.
Yeah,
I mean that could have been a crime story too, but also has horror elements. So sometimes it crosses over.
It does. So I thought you were going to pick Dead Eyes. I would have bet money on that.
I didn't think about it because of the delay. It kind of, we've only really had one new issue later here. If it had been ongoing all year, it probably would have stuck in my head a little bit more. So that's probably why it didn't come to my mind.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
Another category I had a lot of trouble with. Favorite all ages comics. And when I say I had trouble with this one, it's not because there aren't a ton of great stuff out there. They're not written for me. And that's fine. They don't have to be. I love that they exist, and I love that people who they are meant for are reading them. So I think I'm going to say that I broke a rule on this because it's not, the book itself is not listed as an all-ages comic. But I went with Ronan Island from Greg Pak and Giannis Melogiannis. This is we've spoken about it a lot earlier this year. There's nothing in this that would preclude a kid from reading it. It gets a little bit violent in the fact that you've got samurais fighting monsters. But, I mean, what doesn't that happen in? If throwing... if throwing... I mean, but you watch stuff that kids watch. I mean, they throw punches. I'm sure if you watch Timmy Tank Engine or whatever the kids watch these days, somebody gets a busted nose at some point.
If Power Rangers can be considered a kid's show.
Yeah. It does. It's the same way that Wolverine and the X-Men, he mysteriously never murders anybody. The Ninja Turtles never impale anybody on a sword somehow. That's what this book does. And the only people who ever get, quote unquote, like violently killed are the monsters. Now, people do die in the book. They do pass away because it's almost like Walking Dead for kids featuring samurais and ninjas. And it really, I'd give this easily to a 10-year-old without blinking. I think it's great. Greg Pak's really killing it in these books for kids, and I don't think he gets nearly enough attention for it. So, what about you, Matt? I know how much you love kids' books.
I didn't read anything that would be appropriate for children. No mental gymnastics could make what I read appropriate for children.
Not one single book, huh?
No.
So I actually read I'm reading a favorite all ages comic. I don't even have to do mental gymnastics on this one. It's called Cookie and the Kid.
Okay.
And it's Alex Kosakowski, and it's by Antarctic Press.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
Antarctic Press is doing kids' books?
they're doing this book is a kid's book. It's a fantasy type book. I'm not going to call her a monster because she's not a monster, but she lives in this fantasy world and she loves cookies. And she's supposed to be patrolling the outside edge of the fantasy world to keep the humans out. She sneaks out to get cookies because she loves them so much. She sneaks into the human world to get cookies. Well, she accidentally brings a kid back into the deal. They call her Cookie because she loves cookies so much.
Yeah.
So you got Cookie and the kid she brought back into the fantasy world with her.
Okay.
It's a pretty interesting little book and a lot of fun, and I highly recommend it for if you have kids or teenagers or anybody that you're trying to get books for. It's a very, very good one. It's only 5 issues in, but I've been enjoying it.
You know what we're going to have to do in
What's that?
2020 and this next year? We're going to round table some kids' books. We're going to have to make Matt. That way Matt can say that he's read something age appropriate for kids.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't go with Hoxpox. I could see you going with Hoxpox. No, kids need to know that you can die from the Punisher if you're bad.
We haven't seen Wolverine in a while, kids. This is how you do it.
Hey, he was playing with kids in that one book. I can see that.
Yeah.
The listeners, they stepped up in a big way, and they said My Hero Academia. Apparently, we've got I know that book is beloved.
It is.
From what I've read of it, I didn't ever think of it as just an all ages book, but I guess in a lot of ways it is.
It's a very toned down version of X-Men, basically. Yeah. So if you took the old, it's got violence in it, as most Shonen Jump manga does.
But it's like it's after school special violence kind of.
It's not bloody, impaling people violence. At least not the first 73 chapters or whatever it was that I read.
Was that the introduction? No, I read the first arc, and I felt the same way. It was very much like an after-school cartoon. Yeah. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And there were some other books that they picked on there. Spider-Man, Venom Double Trouble, which I know is on the spinner rack here in the shop.
The Marvel action books are really good.
Yeah.
For kids.
I get my nieces, and I was surprised it wasn't on here. I get them the DC Superhero Girls books, and they absolutely love them. And I think that was, if I go back and look at my halfway point, I think that was probably what I picked for that.
I think mine was Star Wars Adventures. Yeah,
that's on the list. The other people picked that as well. Adventure comics. We love adventure. What was some of your favorite adventure comics this year? What you got on this one, Craig?
Adventures of Parker Reef by Chris Campagna. It's
right there
in the title. You cannot argue it with me. Just an absolutely fantastic, heartbreaking tale of a kid trying to get home to his father, only to find out that he's actually deceased.
Yeah.
And based, I'm not going to say based on a true story, because obviously we don't know what the kid's doing now, but the true story is that the Chris Campagna's fiance and child died during childbirth, and that's his way of...
It just breaks your heart, man.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story. If you want to borrow it from me and you're out there, hit me up. I'll let you borrow it. I'll hook you up with where to buy it. It's fantastic. People should read this book.
No doubt. What about you, Matt?
Savage Sword of Conan.
Okay.
Yep.
That's why you got... I knew you were going to work in here somewhere.
Yeah.
I went with Middle West. That book, man, I love Scotty. I love Jorge. The story, you could have taken part of the verbiage that you used. It's a kid trying to get, seeking his father.
Yeah, it's absolutely
you can tie that in. It's that thematically in there. The way that they built that world is great. The characters of the fox that goes with them. That book to me is one of the most outstanding offerings from Image this year. Period.
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic book all the way across.
Some of the best work Scotty's ever done, and that's saying something because he's done a lot of good work. All right, another category that I know, I think Craig probably, this was the easiest for him.
Yeah, this was super easy for me because I only read 3 of them.
And this was favorite manga and now I offered an olive branch in this, and I said foreign comic. But favorite manga or foreign comic on this one. And Craig, go ahead and tell them what yours is, because I think everybody knows.
One Piece, Ichiro Oda. We're at almost 1,000 chapters now, and I have to say I'm probably 30 chapters behind in it. just because I read it in chunks, but still just a fantastic ongoing story. One of my favorite all-time comics, whether it's American, manga, or any comic. It definitely has the fifis, as Matt calls it.
Right.
But it has adventure and pirates and people getting, attacked by sharks and shark people.
Satan candy.
Satan candy, devil fruit.
Yeah.
All kinds of good stuff in this. It would fit into many genres outside of the overall just manga.
Arguably the most popular series in the world.
It is
at the moment.
It is the most popular manga in Japan, and the second most popular in America.
Yeah. What's the first most popular?
I
My
believe
Hero?
I believe. Well, see, I don't know anymore. We'd have to ask one of our ex co-hosts.
Yeah.
I believe for a long time in America it was Naruto,
Okay, I can see that.
and then My Hero may very well be the one that's passed it up at this.
As far as popularity, I'd say those two
Yeah,
ongoing, because Naruto's over, right?
Naruto is over. Yeah. It's not. It's as far as I know, but they were doing something with his kid, and so like a next generation type thing. I don't know if that's done or not. So,
Matt, now you don't read a lot of foreign comics at all. Did you? What did you pick anything on this one?
I don't have anything.
Everything was from America.
Yeah, I didn't read any foreign press, manga, nothing.
Not even like Slain or anything.
Well, I mean that didn't come out in 2019, so I didn't put it.
And you're not reading any of the heavy metal or the Judge Dredd stuff anymore, are you?
Not that's current. There's nothing that's current. No.
Not piquing your interest. That's fair. I mean, we read a ton of American stuff. So I went with one that, again, I don't read a lot of manga, and I'm trying to reverse that. I'm trying to fix that by seeking some things out. One of my favorite ones, actually, it came out in America in 2019. Now, I don't know, because the way that some things have shifted in trade.
If it came out in 2019 in America, that's fair enough.
It's Junji Ito's No Longer Human. Junji Ito is hands down my favorite manga artist, and my favorite manga storyteller.
Just got that book.
Yeah. I because we didn't get it at the shop, it was a delay. I actually bought it online and got it because I didn't want to wait. And that, to me, Junji Ito is my favorite horror writer, even though he didn't write my favorite horror story this year. Overall, I call him the Japanese Bernie Wrightson. The work he does is outstanding.
He is a master of horror.
Yeah, and the stuff that he does, it really, that makes me want to read manga.
Outside of One Piece, it is the one manga that I will always buy when it comes out, is anything by Junji Ito.
Yeah. So. Did I say what the listener pick was for favorite adventure comic?
Yes.
Did I? Okay. Because it was.
So.
I think so.
Go ahead and say it just in case.
Well, it was the same on
Oh yeah, it was
both.
It was My Hero.
Yeah, it was My Hero for this as well.
Yeah.
Second got a book called Chainsaw Man. Was
Jerry talked about that on the show once. Yeah.
There's another book called Witch Hat Altier that was picked. So none of these I'm familiar with. I did go, because I haven't read it, I did go look up Witch Hat Altier. Altier, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I'm going to check that out. Miniseries and maxi series.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is, as we're coming down to the end of genres, quote unquote.
Yep.
There's one more at the end of this, but I think there's universally an answer for this. And we'll start with Matt. What was your favorite miniseries and maxi series?
Reaver from Image Comics.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought that was an ongoing.
No, it was a 6 issue.
Oh, okay.
They're going to do more story arcs, but it was its own story.
Okay. That's not what I thought you were going to pick.
He's going to argue the semantics.
No, I'm not. I think if that's what it came out and that's what they said it was going to be, that's what it is. Yeah. So, what's yours on this one, Craig?
I picked House of X by Jonathan Hickman and Pepe Larraz. See, I didn't pick both of them because the two combined create the Dawn of X. And I preferred House of X over Powers of X.
I went with Dawn of X because it was a 12-issue series that combined House of X and Powers of X, and they both worked together to tell the story.
To make an event.
As the introduction to the ongoing book. And they're going to lead up to actual events that take place in the Marvel Universe that have to do with Krakoa and the presence of the mutants. But we have not yet seen that event. Yeah. But we will. We will someday. It's going to happen.
We did see it.
There were some.
I love you.
Nothing but love for you, brother. The folks at home universally picked House of X and Powers of X. Again, no surprise. Somebody picked. They put on their Murder Falcon. Somebody picked Doomsday Clock, which was surprising.
That's surprising.
Yeah, that's I mean, if I could just read the first 11 issues, and if they had all come out in 1 year,
yeah.
But
hey, so I think if you read it all, to be fair, you got to read something as a whole. And even though I wouldn't have picked this, maybe if you go back and read it as an entirety, yeah. I mean, it got some votes.
Art's subjective, anyways. So,
and then the last issue on this one, and it's going to be all over the place. The last category for non-creators was favorite overall comic, the best of the best.
Yeah.
So I'll start with this one. Waffling back and forth as I sit here and think about it.
Gotta name one.
I know it, damn it, and I hate it. I'll go with House of X, Powers of X. I think that was overall my favorite book that came out at this moment. I'm sure that will change tomorrow as I read more and think about things.
Well,
but
we're not recording tomorrow. So.
I'll go ahead and lock it in. House of X, Powers of X.
I'm going to pick that event as well.
Yeah, same here.
Same here.
Yeah, same answer.
Did not win the listener choice, surprisingly. Criminal did. More people across the board voted Criminal as the best overall comic.
Wow,
of the
that's
year.
super interesting. Wow.
My second, the book that hit number 2 on my list was Little Bird. It got some votes. Gideon Falls got some votes. Coda got some votes. Hoxpox got some votes.
Coda definitely slipped past me as well.
Yeah, I got to go back and catch up on that book. Yeah, it surprises me too because Criminal in other places it didn't show up very much. But hey, I guess overall, maybe that's why. Which brings us, I guess that could be another topic, in a sense, is when you're picking your best of, and you pick best of for each genres. Do you pull from those best of in the genres to be your overall comic, or do you put something else that you have?
I think something can fall outside of the genres and still be your favorite overall.
I mean, it's easy for me. What do I look forward to the most?
Yeah.
It's super interesting. So, what would be number 2 for you, Craig? If you had to, what would be the runner-up?
X-Men.
So, yeah, okay. So the X universe, I guess, the Hoxpox and X-Men, but outside of that, Immortal Hulk would be my number 2.
It was on my short list. Faithless was on my short list.
Faithless was
for overall comics. Maria Lovett, especially just because of her art.
That could have fallen into Mystery Crime also.
You could have, yeah. So back issues. We all read. Part of what we try to do is read a ton of back issues as well. Are there any new books, like new to you back issues y'all read this year that really hit it all for you? What about you on this one, Craig?
So I actually have made a conscious effort to go back and read some of the big stories that I missed throughout the years. Mm-hmm. And this is probably going to kill some of my nerd credential, but I read Batman: The Long Halloween for the first time this year.
Okay.
Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, absolutely loved it. Maybe one of my top 3 Batman books of all time. Stories of all time.
Yeah, super awesome. Man, that story's good.
It's incredible. Mine was 100 Bullets. I went back this year and read all of 100 Bullets. Eduardo Riso did amazing work on that book. Obviously, Brian Azzarello. Everything about that book was great. I absolutely it's one of the best series of all times that ever came out of Vertigo, and that's strong competition with other books. But as far as this year, me going back and reading 100 Bullets, better than anything else I've read this year, solidly.
Yeah, that was a tough one because I read that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good. As far as that team, that creative team goes, that's my favorite thing they've ever done. But I put 2000 AD Slain, A Warrior's Dawn.
Okay. Which you spoke about recently.
Yeah. I've been meaning to go back and read that for a long time, and I'm really glad I did. And just the world that Pat Mills built is so freaking weird and dark, and just him pulling from the Celtic tradition in that, and then expanding on it. I really appreciated what he did with that whole world.
No Consensus. from the listeners.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, that's impossible.
Brubaker's Cap Run, Street Angel, New X-Men, All New X-Men, Black Monday Murders, Tommy. There was a lot. One thing that I forgot to include on the forum online, and this is my fault, and I apologize for doing that. So I did not include a section to vote on your favorite ongoing or your favorite graphic novel, original graphic novel. And so Craig called me out on this. He was like, "Hey, this we got to talk about this."
In fairness, I should have freaking proofread it better when you asked me to.
It's no fault. I regret not putting it on there. So, Matt or Craig, we'll go with you since you are the one that noticed it. What was your favorite OGN of the year?
I went with Everything Is Going Wrong, Comics on Punk Rock and
Mental
Illness, edited by Mark Bouchard. This could have also fallen into an anthology if we had done that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you consider it a graphic novel?
Yeah,
OGN?
I think
okay.
I'd call
because it to me it could be either, I guess. But it was just absolutely fantastic. All these different takes on both music and mental illness and how the two interact with each other. And music is such a healing force for those of us that dealt with mental issues, especially as children. Absolutely just a fantastic book that really touched home in a lot of places for me.
Yeah. I went with Waves by Ingrid Chabert and Carol Morial. This book was lesbian couple trying to have a baby, ended up losing the child. I spoke about it earlier this year. The poignant, touching. They play with color theory a lot in the book. Easily the best OGN I read this year, possibly the best thing I read this year. If not for Hoxpox and some of the other stuff that really just made me happy. This book didn't make me happy, although I think it was impeccably done. It's not a book that's supposed to make you happy.
Yeah.
So what do you got on this one, Matt?
I didn't read very many OGNs. I mean, I think I probably read 5 or less. But as far as the one that I guess was the most striking, my answer would be the same as Craig's.
Okay.
Yeah. Jesus Christ, that book was depressing.
It does. It hits you.
Good Lord.
It hits you. All right, my favorite part of doing these things are actually talking about the people and the teams that make these books. Because to me, comics, we get them, they're great, but they're nothing without the creative minds that produce them and put them out into the world. And there's a lot of different ways to look at what it takes to make a comic. And I think these are the people who make them, and they deserve arguably more attention than the stories themselves do. And that's just my personal opinion. So let's go with colorist. Who was your favorite colorist of 2019? Who was yours on this one, Craig?
So I talked about this guy last week in my book, Book of the Week, and that's Brad Simpson for Wellington. But I realized that I couldn't pick a guy based upon one issue of one book. So I went back and looked at what he worked on over the year. He's the colorist on Coffin Bound and as well as Crone. And, just some outstanding work that this guy's doing, and he's kind of an up-and-comer in the business, and I love to see that can grab you with a couple of issues, and especially in the coloring department. So
yeah, I went with what may be a surprising pick because I don't think he's a household name, but I think when I think of what makes a good colorist, to me it's uniting the tone of the book with the image. Like I think a lot of that comes through with the coloring even more so than the line work does.
Yeah. Because
unless it's just a black and white book, the colors really do affect your mood and what way you dissect the book. And I think very few people, I noticed very few people doing the next level work that Alex Guimarães did this year. He was the color artist on Bone Parish. He also, his 2 big books this year were Bone Parish and The Invaders. Now he did some other stuff as well, but those were his main books. And really more so than the line work, the work that he did, especially in Bone Parish, really did set the mood. And when you're dealing with a place set in New Orleans, what's more colorful than New Orleans? I mean, it's Mardi Gras, it's Southern decadence, and he really just brought that in his palette.
Didn't he color Reaver too?
I think he did color Reaver. Yeah, I think so.
Yes,
and again, way different palette in all 3 of those books, but he knows how to use them. You don't see the reds and the maroons that you see in Reaver. You don't see that in Bone Parish. You don't see the muted colors.
Colorists sometimes fall into using the same palette Of course, sometimes I get stuck in genres that
Yeah.
would use the same palettes, but it's refreshing to see them not say, okay, well, every book needs to be reds and blues and
Yeah.
you know.
Who you have on this one?
Paul Mounts,
Okay.
Mortal Hulk.
Yep.
His addition to that world is still the most striking for me.
I can see, everything that he does in that book is
Yeah.
everything about that book is amazing.
Yeah.
Can I go back and change my answers for some things?
Yeah. Well, remember last year when all our answers were Mortal Hulk?
I do.
Well, it's just the great thing is that from 6 months ago to now,
yeah.
it
Completely
just shows you
different answers.
Well, it just goes to show you how much good stuff's come out in comics in the past 6 months.
There was no consensus on this, but the people listening at home put out some names that none of us picked and that I think are leading the industry. Obviously, Mateus Bergera, Dave Stewart, Jordy Belair, Matt Hollingsworth, all of those names rack up awards constantly. I think
for a reason.
Absolutely, especially Dave Stewart. I mean, you can't sing that dude's praises enough.
He works on about everything, and he's really good at it.
Yep. But that being said, there wouldn't be anything to color if it wasn't for your pencilers.
Yep.
So who was your favorite penciler or inker, pencil and inker through the year? I'll go first. I haven't gone first in a hot minute. I said Ian Bertram from Little Bird. Nothing blew my mind as much as his pages. I want to own one. I need to own one. There's a driving force saying go buy one of these things. I've already inquired about these things, and hopefully they're going to be happening. They are the texture that he brings to the page. I don't see anywhere else. And out of nowhere, I haven't before this. I had not read much of Ian Bertram. I know I've seen his name. I have no idea. I was not a quote unquote fan, and in one solid sweep, made me just drool page after page after page. And if you want to see more of his work, you absolutely gotta. I've spoken about him on several other episodes of this show before, and I'm sure I will again. So, what about you, Matt?
Juan Ferreira.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, his work on Punisher Kill Crews, amazing, man.
Yeah.
He elevated that story like nobody's business. The facial expressions that he draws are some of the best I've ever seen. They're amazing. Not to mention just his panel design is stupid good.
yeah. What about you on this one, Craig?
So this one was really, really tough for me this year. And I'm kind of changing it on the fly right now. And I'm going to go with Al Bennett from Immortal Hulk. And mostly I'm doing that because when he
Joe Bennett.
Joe
Joe
Bennett.
Bennett. I'm sorry.
You've merged them
Al
into one
Ewing. I
person.
merged their names. Joe Bennett from Immortal Hulk. And mainly I'm choosing him because it is really noticeable when he is not on an issue.
Oh,
of that
yeah.
book.
Yeah.
What he's doing with the Hulk in that book is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
The character designs.
Yeah.
So I changed mine on the fly right there.
The folks at home said Sean Phillips. They're loving the work that Sean Phillips
Wow.
does.
It's hard not to
yeah.
choose Sean Phillips, so.
It is. Also on the list, they had Mikhail Janin, Daniel Warren Johnson, deservedly so. Andrea Sorrentino, who was my favorite last year.
I'm
But yeah.
surprised Pepe Larraz didn't get more love.
Didn't they? None of the X books or artists were on there. So surprised the shit out of me too. Also, there's just a lot of really amazing,
really
work
good
being done.
artwork this
Yeah.
year.
All right, so you got to have something to write. If you got to have something to draw. Doesn't do any good to not have a script. So who wrote your favorite comics in 2019?
Should
Matt?
we all say it together?
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
here
Matt
we
and I
go.
will. Yeah, it's Jonathan Hickman.
yeah.
Al Ewing. No mine.
I mean, Al Ewing was
Yeah.
on my list, but it's absolutely, for me, it's Jonathan
Yeah.
Hickman. What he's done with the X titles and just across the board in the X titles
Yeah.
is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no disagreement there. I went with Al Ewing because the bulk of the work is there.
Yeah.
It's just, but the listeners at home, they said Jonathan Hickman, hands down. Bendis was on the list for his Superman work. Jeff Lemire was also on the list, but by and large, it was Hickman just across the board.
Yeah.
Nothing even came close. Well, that's all of our categories on this one, unless I missed one.
Nope.
I don't think so. There was a ton of stuff to read. There was so much that it was impossible to read it all. And so if you didn't hear your favorite book, just come tell us about it on our Facebook page. And let us know. Now, it is time for us to wrap up and get out of here. But before we do that, we're going to throw out some books for next week, I think, and tell you guys what to pick up. So, Craig, what are you going to tell folks to grab this next week?
Hellboy Winter Special for 2019 by Dark Horse. Lots of people on it. It's a story of three short stories, occult tales dealing with the holidays. I believe one of them is going to be a Ebenezer Scrooge type story. And, a boogeyman of whatever that is of New York. So just interested to see what Hellboy does with these kind of classic occult tales.
Yeah.
So,
all right. What about you, Matt?
Second Coming number 6. This is the final issue in this 6-issue run by Richard Pace and Mark Russell.
You stole mine.
Yeah,
you absolutely stole.
I figured
mine.
I'd steal somebody's.
In the spirit of you stealing mine, I'm going to tell folks to go pick up a trade paperback.
in the spirit of you stealing mine.
No, I'm punting because there was only a few things that were on my list, and one of them I wasn't going to do because it was a TPB, but it's also the only one I can think of at the top of my head. And that is Killer Groove from Aftershock Comics. The first trade paperback, Volume 1, comes out. This was written by Ollie Masters, and Eon Marin did some amazing art on it. Jordy Belair did the colors. It's a book about music, man. It's about music and crime, and the power that music can apparently give a criminal. In this one particular case, it's really fun. I really dug it. One of the standouts from Aftershock for me this year. And yeah, that's go check that out. It's a first, so I think you can probably get it for like $16 or $17 at your local comic shop. So go check that out. And we got anything else we want to bring this thing home?
Bring it home.
All right. Like I said, we just spoke about a shit ton of comics and a shit ton of comic creators. There's a lot of stuff. We hope you enjoyed it. We enjoyed coming up with these lists. We will do another one of these in about 6 months. Let you know where we stand at halftime. I want to thank every single person who listened to any episode of our podcast in 2019. We hope we continue to bring you more good stuff in 2020. And if nothing else, guys, we're going to go forth and read some comics. Woo!